Zaccharie Risacher. Okay.
This is the Atlanta Sports Party, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Atlanta Sports Party, your home for the best Atlanta sports talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitr Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Maria Martin. The Atlanta Sports Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, now round one of the NBA draft is finally a wrap. But do you have a better idea of the vision of Landry Fields and this Hawks organization? We'll download on it in a deep dive, and we'll talk about going up on a Tuesday, but actually getting results on a Wednesday. And if it were a person in around the Metro, and the biggest winner in the NBA draft Wednesday was actually France with a historic 4 first-round draft picks. But let's talk about if the Hawks picked the right Frenchman. So, Jarvis, the Atlanta Hawks selected Zaccharie Risacher as the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NBA draft. And Landry Fields stated, quote, "We're thrilled about taking Zaccharie. He has the ability to play on both sides of the ball. He's a versatile defender, a really good shooter, and a high IQ type player." This, of course, was Landry Fields' comments after making that selection. Do you feel like the Hawks picked the right guy?
I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be he's the right guy, but when I look at his profile, right, it kind of makes sense. We talking about 6'8", 6'9" wing that can play on both sides of the court, like Landry mentioned. I kind of get the idea of it, right? Because look at who just won the NBA championship, the Boston Celtics. They got wings all up and down that roster. I'm talking about all NBA type players, right? So when you look at that standpoint and being able to get out of the East, or being able to compete in the Eastern Conference, you kind of got to do the whole monkey see, monkey do type thing, because we understand, the whole big three and throwing together 3 superstars, that's kind of going away, right? And now it seems like teams are loading up on wings and trying to figure out how to compete and how to defend those guys that they have over there in the green and white.
Yeah, and Maria, when you look at him, just like Jarvis said, you have a guy in Risacher who was named the 23-24 French League Best Young Player, the Best Young Player of the Month twice, received the Euro Cup Rising Star Award. And like I said, you had 4 players who played in France, and they're not just coming to the table as rookies per se, coming out as, say, a one and done situation. But you look at him and you wonder, amongst those 4, was he still that right guy for the Hawks?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Jarvis. I think it's really hard to tell. That I don't know is probably the best answer. We're definitely going to see, because he needs to make an immediate impact on this team, which I know we're going to get into in just a minute. And let's face it, a lot of us are not watching a lot of French League basketball, so we don't really know what this kid can bring to the table. I mean, we know what we've seen of his tape. We know what we've heard from Landry Fields, and it's exciting that he's already been in a professional league. He has that experience just at 19 years old. That is different, and that is what a lot of NBA teams do like nowadays. And so it is nice that he has that professional aspect. I liked some of the things that Zaccharie was describing about his game, that he's aggressive, that he can shoot the 3, which he even said we're going to need to win games. Just a 3-and-D wing type player, I think, is what the Hawks really need. It's just hard to tell whether or not he was the best out of the French guys, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think it is one of those situations where it's to be determined, because as much as we look at the fact that he is 6'9", still you got to think about the size and the strength, right? Because Jason Tatum is that guy. Even a Jaylen Brown is that guy in terms of like those guys who are the 3-and-D, but they're also strong. They're also guys who can really, really defend against at any position, primarily because of that strength and that size. So that's something that you can be concerned about. And also, just kind of looking at the attack piece there, because I'll be honest, other than Stephon Castle, I don't know that there are a whole lot of guys in this entire draft where I was like, yeah, they're a dog, they're going to get after it. And I feel like that's something that, I don't know, maybe the Hawks are going to have to look for in free agency. But I like his attitude. I like the fact that he still on some level has the go get it. And he's a guy who, let's just be honest, he wants to be here. He thinks that he can contribute. He wants to be here to contribute. And I think he's one of those guys where, all you can do is put a TBD on it. But honestly, Jarvis, you better not put a TBD on it for too long, because the Hawks just don't have the good luxury and fortune of being able for him to grow and develop. And let me just say this, Jarvis, before I throw it back to Maria and you. So many people have been saying, yeah, this is a great opportunity because remember how the Hawks were able to take Jalen Johnson in the 2021 draft. He was a project. They sent him to the G League, and look what he turned out to be. Well, there was a little bit more bandwidth at that time. You had guys like, and I'm going to just go across the board, but you had guys like Kevin Huerter, Danilo Gallinari, Solomon Hill. I mean, there were so many other people and players that were in the mix overall that the Hawks could just throw out there because they just had more depth, if you will. I don't think this Hawks team can afford a 3-year or 2-year project because Jalen was drafted in 21. We got to really see what he was about in 23, 24. I don't think the Hawks have that luxury. So you got to see something soon.
Yeah, that's why I feel like that's my issue with the pick, right? Because I feel like he's a project. I know, if you're projecting and saying that, okay, he's going to be the X type of player within the next few years. Yeah, but what about this season and the next season after that? Because guess what? Look at your roster. You have guys that you've paid money. You've paid Trae Young. You've paid DeJounte Murray. You've paid Oyeka Okongwu. You're looking at potentially paying. You could start to think about paying Jalen Johnson, who is a guy that you brought into your system and have developed, right? So, and there's an argument to be made that are they the same type of guy? I wouldn't necessarily go that far, but I feel like Jalen Johnson can make a lot of money in that 4 spot in today's NBA. So, if Zaccharie kind of falls into that 3 spot, we can talk about some maybe cooking with grease, but how long is it going to take us to get there? So I feel like, my biggest issue with this pick in particular is because is what he's going to be able to do in year 1. And I feel like that is my issue. That's my problem because I feel like Sarr could have been a guy that, come in year 1, might not be in that much develop on the offensive side of the ball, but he can come in and make an immediate impact defensively. And from the athletic standpoint, I'm talking about the length and being able to guard and being able to switch. We understand how important that is in today's game, right? So I feel like that's my biggest issue with it because, that year 1 impact, it makes a difference. Even if it's coming off the bench and giving you 15 to 16 minutes and maybe 7 to 8 points and you're seeing that a glimmer of hope, like, okay, this kid might be onto something, or Landry Fields knows what he's looking at and he knows how to evaluate talent. But if you're telling me that in year 1, this cat gonna be in the G League and we ain't gonna see, he's gonna be out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks cannot afford to have somebody be a project at this point. And we've talked about it. Of course, in the year that the talent was down in the draft, they got the number 1 pick, and that's just where the chips fell, and it is what it is. And so they had weeks and weeks and weeks to do their homework, and they asked Alex Sarr to come work out. He opted out of that. There was some controversy around that, and he even doubled down when he was on ESPN on the day of the draft and said, I am the best player. They have enough tape on me. I didn't feel like I needed to go and work out. I knew that as soon as he was talking like that, that would carry some red flags with this organization.
Yeah.
And I think it's tough, especially when he did work out for other teams, to justify following a player who just felt like they didn't need to show you anything else, whether we think he's good enough or not. And maybe he was the right pick at 1, but I think once that started to happen, things probably shifted with this organization and they started looking elsewhere. They started looking at Zaccharie Risacher, obviously. And I think that it's just tough to say right now because there is a development aspect to him. And that is, it's scary for an organization who has not shown us any plan. And we don't really know what's next, but we do know that they are going to have to make some moves. It's inevitable at this point, especially with who they chose at 1 in the NBA draft.
Yeah, because he is someone who, if they're looking for something in the first year, he's going to have to do it. And for me, I'm thinking to myself, we also look back at the Hawks team, especially the last couple of seasons, and the depth has diminished on that bench, right? And so that depth is diminished, especially from a 3-point. Like, there's no assassin with the exception of Bogdan Bogdanovic. Saddiq Bey was sort of an assassin, but I felt like as he tried to bring his defense up, kind of his three went down as his D went up, which is fine. We'd rather you be that 3 and D guy, but I wonder about that piece. But we'll talk about that on the other side as well, because like you said, Maria, it still begs the question of whether or not this pick gives us a better idea of where this organization is headed. Stick around because we'll talk about it in the deep dive. Our Atlanta Sports Party today is brought to you by GameTime. Now, when we think about tickets, right, especially Major League Baseball, because we have more than a half a season to go, GameTime might be the place where we can get our tickets faster and easier. And that's what you want to do, especially as the Braves are surging. Had a nice showing, 500 on their road trip, and now they're coming back home to play. So if you want a ticket, go to GameTime, where the prices are guaranteed in that app to actually go down closer to the first pitch if you decide last minute that you want to go over to Truist Park. So killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, lowest price guarantees. All of it is what you can get with GameTime that takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They've got flash deals where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game, or event all-in pricing where it's a toggling feature that shows you the total upfront with no surprise fee at checkout. So download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create that account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off, and download that GameTime app today after you finish watching the Atlanta Sports Party. It's last minute tickets with lowest prices that are guaranteed. All right, Maria. So we were kind of talking about it a little bit in that first seg. Want to go back to it because one of the things that we said was, in selecting a guy like Risacher, who seems like he may be a little bit more of a developmental project than maybe an Alex Sarr would have been, it kind of harkens us back to the question we've been asking for some time now, which is the vision of this organization, the vision of Landry Fields. So after the selection at number one, and the draft, the Hawks decided to go with Risacher in the draft. Do you have a better idea? You feel like you have a better idea of where this organization's headed?
Not really. I mean, I think if they would have chosen a guy like Donovan Clingan, maybe, just because you look at Clint Capella, he's in the final year of his contract, and that would be an immediate plan to fill that gap, right? And with someone like Zaccharie Risacher, it tells me that A, you can develop him behind Trey and DeJounte, or along with them, or if you get rid of one of them, Zaccharie Risacher is a guy that can shoot the ball. Not as well as I would like, clearly, but you could survive without one of those two pieces in the backcourt if you have a guy like Zaccharie Risacher. But I think this was the pick that was the most confusing to me when it comes to the trajectory of what these guys are going to do in the offseason. I used to be pretty sold on the fact that they would have one, if not two of these guys in the backcourt, DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, departing from this team in the offseason. Now that they picked Zaccharie Risacher, I'm not so sure that that's even going to happen. Again, if you would have picked other guys, even Alex Sarr, that signals to me that you can probably make some more moves, and you probably feel a little bit better about him on the court right now. But Zaccharie Risacher, as we've mentioned, is a guy that has a lot of question marks, does have a lot of potential, but time is ticking for this team, and they're going to have to make some moves. So now at least it tells me that they do have a plan in place to move some guys around. I just don't know who it'll be.
Yeah, I'm with you, Maria. This is drafting him just lets me know that they are going to be busy come July 1st, hopefully, right? Because here's the thing with this team, this organization. We talk about how, the Trey or DeJounte piece. I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I just want to kind of circle this conversation around just the idea of where they should be, right? Like if they should be in a space where they should just tear it all down to the studs and rebuild, or they say, or you can kind of reset, like T always talked about reset. They can reset some by just trading one of those guys, and I think that Risacher really doesn't give you an idea, because unless a lot of people are wrong about Risacher and he comes in and he's a guy that comes off the bench for you and eventually works his way into the starting lineup by the end of the season, the likeliness of that happening, not high. So I feel like, this is, and then to add to that, when you think about what all of these times we've heard Landry Fields speak, we talk about whether or not they're going to build around Trae Young. essentially being asked that in several different ways and
Yeah.
having plenty opportunity to say, hey, we're going to do this. And they every time they were like, oh yeah, we want to have Hawks ethos and all this stuff and all this crap, just being thrown around to kind of basically dodge the question. So I feel like the Hawks are in a space where they need to figure out, and Deshaun even mentioned this on the after the Hawks pick, we talked about it on the Hawks postcast last night. Like they need to figure out who they are.
Yeah.
They always talk about Hawks ethos. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Define that for the fans, because you seem to have an understanding of that, but when you say it, people don't know what it is. So I need you to define it and verbalize that bad boy so we can understand where you all are headed.
Yeah, that's what I felt like as well. I saw a couple of blurbs that talked about how Risacher fits the culture, and I kept thinking, and that would be because I'm
Right.
not really sure
What is it?
what is. Yeah, I feel like I know, and again, I know this is out of the space of basketball, but follow me here. I feel like I know the Falcons. I feel like I know what that
Sure.
organization is. I feel like I know the culture that
Right or
Terry
wrong,
Fontenot.
T, you know what it, you
Exactly,
know where they're
right or
headed.
wrong. I think I know exactly. I think I know the
Yeah.
culture, and I think I know the vision of Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris pretty darn well. I feel the same for Alex Anthopoulos and Brian Snicker. I think I know the ethos of that organization and where they're going. 12 hours later, I'm still not sure I kind of know where the Hawks are going, because to Maria's earlier point, while I like what Risacher brings to the table, and while I like the fact that, hey, in this day and age, you just got to throw as many guys in there as possible who can give you the possibility of having another 3-and-D guy, you still haven't answered the question that you have at center. Let's just be real. So it's not Clint Capella. I think we all know that that's not the answer. But are you going to go out and get a center in free agency? And if so, who are you going to get? Now, granted, it looks like the Brooklyn Nets are out there doing all kinds of wholesale things. So maybe you do miraculously get a Nick Claxton, but we also know that this is an organization that has not had the best of luck in getting top tier or even maybe second tier free agents, with the exception of Clint Capella, who again was injured and didn't even play when they first got him, and DeJounte Murray, who is basically not a free agent, but told, hey, if you want to move on because we're going to basically go into tank mode, you can. So that's where my concern is, like, okay, you still got issues at the 5. So, what are you going to do there? As much as I love Onyeka Okongwu, I don't know that he's shown himself yet to be like a starting center. We don't have a Clint Capella. So that's always my question. Like, okay, you answered one question, kind of, sort of, but it's kind of a 3-and-D guy who's not going to be a starter per se. So what about that 5? So speaking of what about free agency, because like you said, Jarvis, that's where we're immediately shifting to. What are you going to do there? Because that's just days away. If you are Landry Fields or Kyle Korver or the GM triumvirate, right? Are you keeping Trae Young? Are you keeping DeJounte Murray? Like, what's your next move going to be with this organization? Because that was also a question that many of us thought might be answered by what they did in the draft. It may give us the tea leaves to what was going to happen for Trae or DJ.
I'm going with what I know. Like, I'm a guy, like, I got to see it, right? Because I understand that DeJounte Murray came from a winning organization that traditionally wins. But what did they do when he was there? Were people like clamoring for DeJounte Murray? Did the Hawks have to beef up that trade in order to compete with other teams who were throwing first round picks at them? Maybe that's what it seems like. To throw that many first round picks for a guy like DeJounte Murray, not diminishing what he is and who he is as a person and a player. But I'm just saying, like, just from the Hawks standpoint, what is it that that drew you to that? So, or what was the what were the results of what DeJounte Murray did in San Antonio? Yeah, they were a losing squad, they were tanking, and it was very clear what they were trying to do. So they might can take some pointers from a team or organization that knows where they're going and what they're trying to do. But I feel like for me, it has to be Trae Young. I've seen him be the guy, to take them to the Eastern Conference Finals, and it may be an injury away from going to Game 7 and potentially upsetting the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Because we know once the Milwaukee Bucks got to the finals, it was kind of easy going, So I have to go for what I know. I have to go for what I've seen, and I would stick around. I would stick with Trae and try to figure this thing out, because the man is the hell of a basketball player. So I gotta build around that. I gotta figure out a way to get that done.
I think that's tough though, because they've never signaled that they're going to build around him.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. And I have always thought that it was Trey, and then you figure everything else out. But they've never really shown any signs of respecting that and honoring that and wanting
Maybe
that
that's
to
the
be the
issue, Maria.
plan.
Maybe that's the issue.
And I feel like it is. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now you have your number one player, your star player, which I still believe is very much a star in the NBA, in Trae Young, who is very vocal on his podcast and on social media and whatever, that there is clearly a disconnect and that he is frustrated. And he doesn't outwardly say it in as many words, but with what he's been saying, and that he's frustrated and he wants to win and all these things, he's kind of telling you what needs to happen. Either let me go and let me go win somewhere, or y'all need to build a team that can actually win here. And it's redundant. It's frustrating. It's really annoying, I'm sure, for Trey, because he wants to win more than anybody else. And nothing about this roster indicates that they can win anywhere close to the near future. And it is a very young roster. There's a very big lack of depth, as Tenitr had talked about earlier, which 2021 Eastern Conference Finals run, we all knew was wild, and still don't know how that happened. But they had depth on that roster that they don't have now. And so I know what you're saying, and like I get it, and I feel that, and I kind of agree. When have they ever said they were going to build around Trey, though? So I don't know that that's even a possibility at this point. So to me, I wouldn't be shocked if Trey, DeJounte, or both is gone this summer.
Yeah. I think so too. I think that we are no clearer with what the vision of the organization is going to be as it relates to Trey, DeJounte, or both than we were 12, 14, 16 hours ago. And you keep hearing these same rumors, right? A lot of them tied to the New Orleans Pelicans and the possibility of Brandon Ingram coming here. So, I mean, if Brandon Ingram comes here, well, obviously you don't keep DJ. But I think my question becomes, okay, so in Brandon Ingram, are we saying that we have a guy that we think is going to be a better partner to Trae Young? And therefore, you're going to now have Brandon, Trae, and say Jalen Johnson, and then you're going to try to build around, that shell, if you will. I still don't feel like there is a clear cut or a clean cut, because the other piece there is this. There were times, I think it was the last pre-draft presser, where Landry Fields was asked some questions as it relates to Trey, and the answers were very vague. There was no, like Maria said, no outright, yes, we are building around Trey. We're going to use this draft first and second round, or even negotiating up or down the draft board, or getting more picks. There was nothing that was mentioned, even about free agency, that said, hey, we're going to go all guns blazing to build a team around Trey. So I'm with Maria. I wouldn't be shocked at anything that would happen. I don't know if they're keeping Trey. I don't know if they're keeping DeJounte. I don't know if they're keeping them both. I don't know if they're shipping both of them off, because I'm not sure of whether we are in development phase and we are like reset/rebuild, or whether we're trying to get to resulting and we're actually going to put ourselves in places to get there.
I also don't know that they know the answer to that as we sit here right now and discuss it a day after the draft. Like, I actually think it's ever changing, and I think it's ever evolving, which is a problem in and of itself. Like, you need to have a plan, and you need to be in it. And like, people must think we're crazy because we say the same stuff every time we talk about the Hawks, but it's true. I mean, we literally don't know, because they don't know. I don't think it's we don't know, and we don't know what we're talking about. I think that the front office and this organization genuinely does not have a collective identity when it comes to their plan for the offseason. I think it is still changing. I think it's a conversation, which is annoying. And if I'm Trey, and as you're mentioning, these vague comments about me, and I'm your star player, and I've been here since the beginning, whatever, I'm like, hello, what are we doing? If I'm him, I'm like, oh, go ahead and just let me go now at this point.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys something on the other side. I know we're going to talk some Braves, guys. I promise you we will get to Braves. But Maria, you bring up a great point. Jarvis, you bring up a great point. I want to wrap this conversation about the Hawks on the other side. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the noise. Locked On Sports Today also brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day? And this, guys, is more of a philosophical question, but I still feel like it begs to be addressed because of what we've been talking about. And that is maybe Maria, maybe Jarvis, we don't know. And maybe they don't know because a part of it is the inability for the organization to really have leverage. Like there really wasn't any leverage from what I could read, the tea leaves, all of the reports of getting a haul for getting out of that number one spot. So that's one piece. Number two, always the challenges of having free agents to actually want to come here. And that said, number three, now you're just days away from free agency starting. So I'm asking you guys, like, real talk, is it really about like what Landry Fields will or won't do, or what Kyle Korver will or won't do? Or is it about what the rest of the NBA and the association won't do? Because the Hawks just seem to be having challenges in terms of leveraging. I make the point that way because look at the Knicks. Now, don't get me wrong. The Nets got a straight up haul for Mikal Bridges, right?
Yeah.
But the Knicks were able to kind of strong arm that a little bit to say, oh, you can have all the stupid picks because we already have the guys in place with the resulting. We've got Jalen Brunson. We have Julius Randle coming back. We just signed OG Anunoby to a max contract. You can have all those darn picks. We want Mikal Bridges because we were number 2 this year in the Eastern Conference. And if not for injuries, maybe we would have challenged the Celtics and maybe shocked the world to get there. The point that I'm making, ladies and gentlemen, is will anything change even when free agency comes? Because I don't know that the Hawks are an organization that has set itself in position like that to be able to leverage, or dare I say it, what Brad Stevens was able to do with the Celtics organization as well, getting players in place until they finally got the chip.
I think you make a great point, honestly, because I think a lot of people have put a lot on Landry Fields and they've said, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, blah, 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 blah. But like, what leverage does he have? And I think that that's a really good point to make and something to be very cognizant of when we're talking about the Hawks is there really isn't much leverage. There wasn't leverage to move out of the number 1 spot. I don't know what they would have given up to do that. I mean, there's no leverage. And we saw the big trade for DeJounte Murray and, it was a blockbuster trade and you would have thought that that would have worked out and you spend a lot to get him. All those things are great, but it's not great because the backcourt that we thought was one of the best on paper in the NBA is not showing us that and has not shown us that. So, it's tough because they are in a very difficult position. I think what hurt them even more was, although a rookie and although he was not drafted until last night, Alex Sarr saying, I'm not going to go work out for them. Whether you want to read into that or not, whether it's, he really believes that because he was here in Atlanta showing them in person his basketball, I think he didn't want to work out for them for a reason. That sends a very big message. And it's not good when it comes to guys wanting to come here. And it sucks because this would be a really good place for basketball to thrive. And it's a great city that loves its sports, but it's hard to love the Hawks when there's no vision. And how do you convince a player to come here? How do you convince one of the biggest players in the NBA to come here? You can't. There is no, hey, come be a part of, well, we don't really know what it is, but you should come be a part of it. I don't know that works out,
And we don't really know that we're going to we're going to go through with the apron strings to get you here by any means necessary versus, again, I'll use the Knicks as an example versus what we saw them do with OG just last night or yesterday.
Yeah. Can we just be honest for a second? Everybody that's listening or watching this podcast,
this has been a very honest episode.
Yeah.
Right.
This is that show.
This organization has been some good mid for a very long time. So you can't lie to me. You can't fake the funk with me. I've been in meetings where they talking about promoting different games because those teams have superstars on them and they're trying to put together ticket packages because those teams have superstars in them. They try to charge a little bit more because they know people will come out and see superstars when you don't have any, right? So I've been in those meetings before and I understand, and I've asked the questions to those people making those decisions over there. Why don't y'all promote the guys on your team, instead of the guys that people are going to come see, right? Because that's what my angst come from with this organization. That's why I'm always saying, what's the vision? What's the plan? because y'all have never really had one. Y'all just kind of sit back and say, okay, oh, we got number one pick. Okay, all right, we're gonna figure out who we're gonna draft number one overall. Oh, and then next thing you know, you hear reports. Oh, they're still waffling over who they're gonna pick. We got a pretty good idea of who
I
y'all
mean,
gonna
an
pick.
hour before the draft. An
You know,
hour
it-
before the
Someone,
draft. Both
exactly.
said that
literally,
they didn't
someone
know.
said, "Oh my God, they're
Like,
waffling. Oh my God, he's pacing back and
what?
forth."
What? What
Yes,
are we talking about here? Like we're trying, and you say you're trying to win
yeah,
after the guy who took this team to the Eastern Conference Finals said on a podcast that he wants to win. That's when you say you want to win. Like, how about you saying that right after the season? Hey, look, we're gonna do everything in our power to try to win games, and you're gonna see that by the moves that we make, by the people we draft, by the people we hire to come in here. We're going to do everything in our power to win games and put a good product out there on the court. I ain't never heard none of that. It can be bull crap. Sometimes I don't mind having smoke blown up in my eye. I'm cool with that. But just at least fake the funk on trying to do something, trying to put yourself in position to be able to compete. But this whole we're not into resulting. We're trying to develop guys, and we're just figuring it out on the guys that's in the NBA. Oh, look at this G League. Look at our development and all that stuff. Look at how our rookies, Landry Fields was talking about, oh yeah, Muhammad Gay and Kobe Buffkin. Oh yeah, they developed really well. I don't care. Y'all stunk on the court last year. You stunk. You
yeah,
stunk. And you paying all this doggone money, and you've done nothing but dump salaries for ever since doggone Landry Fields walked through that door. Sometimes I feel like this guy got strings in his back. Like honestly. So we're not gonna believe you. We're not gonna buy into what you're selling until you actually do something.
yeah.
Earn my doggone respect. Earn my doggone benefit of the doubt. You ain't earned it. You haven't earned it at all.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this crap.
Right.
It's so frustrating watching this team.
Yeah. And I think they're going to have to figure out a way. I don't know how you do it because, yeah, I do think low key that was kind of a bad look like, oh, that rookie can kind of punk the organization. And I'm not saying that we think that, but that was the perception. Like,
Yeah.
oh, a rookie can punk them, or a rookie and his agent can say, we're not going there. What is this? So, yeah, I think that was very difficult to kind of manage through. And it could bode poorly for you in free agency
No
because they
respect, T. They have no
right,
respect
and
nationally.
exactly.
None.
So I think it's more
None.
of like that fundamental piece that maybe goes beyond the Landry Fields, but starts to really go back to the question you guys posed earlier, which is what is the identity of the organization on the court, on the sidelines, and even in the front office?
Yeah, and back to the Alex Sarr piece for a second, because I know people can't stop talking about it. It still really bugs me that he declined to work out for the Hawks when he worked out for other teams, but
Yeah,
whatever.
the Wizards, but okay.
Yeah, and
Wizards.
Jeff Teague certainly had his words for Alex Sarr when he decided not to work out here in Atlanta. Go listen to those. I can't repeat those.
They
But
stink.
I was thinking, why would Landry Fields admit that? Why would he say he declined to work out? Well, number one, he did that. Here's what I think. He did that so that when they didn't pick Alex Sarr, people wouldn't be up in arms. It was to preface the fact that, hey, here's a reason for not taking him. This kid basically is like, I'm not going to come and show you anymore because you have enough on me. Which,
Yeah.
for any rookie out there, I don't care how good you are. That is such BS. Like, you don't need to do that.
Right.
Whether you believe that you are the best basketball player on the earth or not, why are you declining a workout? Whatever. So, and you've seen enough tape, you've seen me play, like, what are we doing? Literally, what are we doing? But I digress. I think that he did that because he was trying to prep fans for, hey, we're not going to take the guy that you guys kind of all wanted. So when we do pick this other guy who we have a lot of question marks about, you'll be happy because he declined to work out for us. And people were still like, wait, I'm
We're not done.
confused. What's going on? And that's all that I want. And I think all three of us want. Clearly, you can tell we're all passionate about the subject. We're frustrated, same as the fans. I want there to be some kind of fire and some kind of drive verbalized, because at the end of the day, if you're not winning, because that is a message in and of itself that you're serious about winning, because you are winning. Well, they're not doing that. So how else do you get it across? You verbalize, we are going to do everything that we can. and we've never heard it. Whether it's just nonchalant or dodging the question, you can be a general manager and say a lot without saying anything, but also still saying you want to win. You know, and that's not really, I hate for that to be kind of a knock on Landry Fields. It's for anybody. You know, you have to verbalize what the fans want to hear, whether you really think you can do it or not. Fans ultimately just want to hear that they are listened to, that they are cared about, that you care about the franchise that you're running. And that's, it's just this circular, cyclical event. And it's so frustrating. And the draft didn't help me at all.
No.
A big old glob of mid, Maria.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yep.
Big
You know what makes it
pile
worse?
of mid.
What makes it worse is the Braves are really good. I mean, they've had a down season, but okay, they're still good at baseball.
Still 10 games over 500 in the wild card race.
And the Falcons,
Let's be
Even
real.
worse, and I think what makes it even worse is the fact that the Falcons stood on business. Whether you like the Michael Penix Jr. pick or not, they were like, "Oh, we're going for broke, and we stand on business,
Just
and
what we
are
own.
fine with what we did. This is who we are. Hate it or love it." And they're going to live by it. I can respect that. Whether
100%.
or not we liked it or loved it doesn't matter. They had a vision, and then they could go from one point of light, meaning MPX, all the way through the entirety of the draft to explain to you, you could see the pattern. So whether you like the pattern or not, whether you like the vision or not, certainly I think all three of us can explain the vision. We explain the plan. We understand the plan over there in Cobb County. I think we're just hoping, wishing, praying that we will understand the plan by and by when free agency kicks off. Listen, we appreciate you.
I say some spirituals around this thing.
Yeah, because you got to kumbaya with this. Locked On Sports Atlanta Party now has a YouTube channel that's streaming 24/7. It's all things Atlanta Sports Live.
Say a prayer.
Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and say a prayer for us because we're saying a prayer for you. You can also catch us free and available wherever you download your podcast. We'll see you on the Atlanta Football Party Monday where we understand the assignment. Okay, bye.
Bye.